So today, I'm going to show you how to make that old school punk style of design. Now this tutorial isn't going to be super specific. I like to keep things pretty open so that way you guys can try out some different things and kind of come up with your own process. So you can kind of think about this video as more of a stepping stone rather than a step-by-step guide on how to get an exact replication of a look or aesthetic. So really, I'm just going to give you a bunch of different ideas and variables that you can kind of play around with so you can kind of come up with your own effect that works for you. So with all that out of the way, let's get into Photoshop. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that whatever photos you're using, make sure that they're smart objects. That way, if you apply any effects, you can always go back and change them, and you're not destructively editing your photos to where you can't go back to where you were or make slight adjustments as you go. And then other than that, you should be really ready to go. So let's go over the simplest way to come up with that kind of punk aesthetic. So simply, the first way to do it would be to add this effect, the Pasteurize. I believe that's what it's called. And really, as you can see, it has that kind of grainy, duotone kind of effect. It's really simple. Sometimes the outcome is good, sometimes it's bad. It's kind of a hit or miss. But one of the ways that you can kind of make this a little bit better is to add some noise to it. So if we go up here and we add some noise to the photo, I'm going to actually add a lot of noise. I just want to see kind of how that looks. As you can see, with it off, you start getting a lot more detail. Now, I don't know exactly how this works. I remember I got this tip a while back from a different video, but it definitely helps. It definitely kind of helps break apart the image and just add a little bit more details. That way it's not so black or white. That way you have a little bit more of a fade off and you can kind of get a little bit more detail in there than you would have before. But really, this is kind of a really quick and simple way to kind of get an effect. And you could also invert it if you wanted to. If you wanted to kind of get the opposite. Or you could even add a gradient map if you wanted to change the colors. That's definitely an option. You could already be done if that's all you needed. If you need something really quick, just like that. So what I really like about this style of design, and one of its benefits, is you really don't have to worry about the pictures matching perfectly. So, a lot of the stuff that I tend to do, I like to worry about, does the lighting match? Do the colors match? Do the contrast match? Worrying about that kind of more, making sure that the photos feel together and cohesive rather than, they're coming from two completely different sources. But with this effect, it really doesn't matter because it's just going to break it down anyways into that, black and white. And so really, it opens up a lot of different options that you wouldn't have normally. So for instance, I have this flower here. I just kind of threw this in. I honestly don't know what the look is going to be, but if I'm just going to do this, or that looks like it could be cool. So let's add the effect again. Maybe that's exactly what you're going for, but see, I don't have to worry about the color or the lighting or the contrast or anything like that. I can just kind of quickly throw in elements together and then just add this effect on top, and it's gonna come out, a lot more cleaner than it would be if I had to worry about, all of those different details matching and making sense together. So that is definitely a benefit with this style of design. And especially if you're going for something where maybe it's kind of more conceptual and you want to have a bunch of different images together and they're just not really working together in terms of like how they look, applying this kind of effect on top of everything can really just bring everything together, and then you don't have to worry about color, contrast, lighting, all of that kind of stuff. All right, so what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to take this off and then I'm going to merge those two layers, and then I'm going to convert it to a smart object, and I'm going to reapply that noise. This is so whenever I'm applying the different effects, we can see how it interacts with just the one image, but also the two images. And on top of that, I can mess with the noise and we can kind of see how that kind of changes the different effects. So really the most important part of getting this effect, or effects, depending on how you want to look at it, is really going to be in the filter gallery. So if we go in here, there's a couple different of these kind of options that I think kind of are close or exactly kind of what you're thinking of when it comes to this kind of style. So really it's not like a one way to do it. It's more of like, how do you want to do it? What is the end look that you're looking for? Because, you know, this could definitely be an option for that kind of old grungy kind of style where it's just black and white. So that could also be an option right here. Or we could go to torn edges. Maybe that's more what you're thinking of, you know, and really it just comes down to preference, what you're looking for, you know, and even just messing around with the different variables. I think the ones that I would think to use are this chalk and charcoal, Conte crayon, that's how you pronounce that, graphic pen, note paper, sometimes it works better than others, photocopy, sometimes you can get that to work, not always. Stamp, let's see. So stamp isn't really working with this image. Torn edges, I think sometimes, yeah, you can get some cool stuff with charcoal. It can kind of look like it's almost Xeroxed if that's kind of what you're going for. So really it's just kind of playing around with these different effects and all the different details just to kind of figure out something that you really like and kind of works with whatever you're trying to go for. And also just what works best with your images. Personally, I really like using note paper. That's probably my favorite way to kind of play around with this effect. Sometimes the contrast doesn't come out quite how I want because it usually doesn't go to black, it usually goes to gray, but you can always just change that after the fact. So I'm just gonna kind of play around with all of the different options and just kind of see what we can come up with. All right, so I kind of like this look. I think it's pretty cool. I think I might be able to do a little bit more with it. So let's see kind of what else we can do with this kind of design and what we can do with these effects. So I'm gonna go ahead and click OK. So as you can see, this is what it looks like once it's applied, which, you know, this is already kind of cool to kind of have it like hanging outside of the border, which yeah, maybe that's all you need. Maybe that's all you want. Just kind of depends. But kind of like what I was saying earlier, now we can go into noise. And, you know, if we wanted to, we could add way more noise and see how that affects the filter. Or maybe we just want to take it off. See, that's a drastic difference. Obviously, I had probably way too much noise, but if I were to bring that down, kind of back to where we were, so let's turn the noise off. Turn it back on. So, you know, it has a little bit more of like a fade off rather than it kind of being like a stop where it's just here's black and here's white, kind of fades in a little bit more. But, you know, let's just say we wanted to go with that. So let's go back into our effect and let's see if maybe we can make some adjustments and see what that does. So yeah, so now we can add a little bit more of that effect. It probably doesn't work quite as well with an image like this, but if you had an image that did work with it, and this is the effect you were going for, that would be perfect. But I personally like having the noise, so that's what I'm gonna go with. Now you could definitely stop here. You know, all you could do is just put on some textures and that would be the end of it. Or you could do some extra stuff, which I'm gonna kind of show you some things that I might consider doing or some things that I like doing that you might wanna incorporate into your own thing, or you know, maybe it's just something that you can kind of keep in the back of your mind if you ever need to do an edit like this and you just are like, you know what, it needs a little bit more. So what I might think about doing, so I'm gonna put a black background just so it kind of matches. So all we have is black and white. Now, if you go into the channels option, you'll have all these different layers. Now, if you control click one, what it's gonna do is it's gonna select all of the white and none of the black. So if I make a mask and I were to change the background color, so now we can go in and completely change the background color or, you know, the secondary color, and we would just be stuck with this. And you might get a little bit of, you know, you can kind of see some of the darker edges. So what I would do is I would just add a clipping mask, and if I want to keep it white, I can just color that in, and that gets rid of all of that. But likewise, you know, if we were to make this background black again, and we wanted to make this a different color, now we could just go ahead and boom. Now we have a different color on there. And since we removed it from the background, we can even add things behind it. Let's make this white. You know, or, you know, maybe we can add something else. You know, maybe we want to add some scribbles or something. Gotta invert that. So now it's completely transparent and we don't have to worry about the actual edges of the photo. But, you know, we could always shift click and get rid of that. And now we won't see the scribbles unless we move it elsewhere. So it really just kind of depends on what you're looking for, what you want to do. I've seen a lot of people kind of mess around with kind of stuff like this, because you could even, you know, add in a secondary photo. So let me kind of do that. So let's just see what happens if I put this photo in, and I'll just copy all of the effects onto here. Let me get rid of the background. So now you can kind of just put a bunch of different things over and under each other, however you please, whatever makes the most sense for you. Actually, I kind of like it maybe going below. Yeah, like, you know, that could definitely be something cool. It all just kind of depends on what you're going for and what you like and what you're looking to do. You know, you could put a bunch of textures below or text. You know, let's do that. Let's see what happens if we put the text box here. So really, you could test out a bunch of different things at this point. The options are pretty much limitless. I mean, you can try putting different things on top of each other. You can try the different noises, the different effects. You can remove the background. You can keep it in. You know, you can add different, you know, gradients if you wanted to see what kind of different effects you can get. I mean, really, the sky is the limit. It really just kind of depends on what you like, what you want to make, and how you want to make it. Really, this effect is pretty simple to get. It's really just about experimenting, just to kind of find what feels right for whatever you're doing. And I know this video wasn't super specific on exactly how to get certain effects, but really I feel like this is the kind of effect that really just needs to be experimented with, and then you can just kind of experiment with and just see what kind of works for you and how to get the effect that you're looking for or what works for the project that you're working on. And really, I just wanted to show you the basics of it so that way you can kind of do your own thing, try your own stuff. But hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you did, I'd appreciate if you would check out the rest of my channel and then consider subscribing. I hope to see you in the next video.